Welcome back, everybody, to Neuroscience. Today we're going to go through the autonomic nervous system and the limbic system. The parasympathetic preganglionic neurons are going to be from the cranial to the sacral region of the spinal cord, and this plays a function to maintain homeostasis, along with regulating the reproductive function. The sympathetic preganglionic neurons are going to be concentrated in the thoracolumbar region, and it functions to regulate the 3 E's, so embarrassment, excitement, emergency, and embarrassment. The cranial nerves have various outflows from the spinal cord, as you can see here. The functions can range from the controlling the muscles, the ciliary muscles in the eyes, to digestion and bowel and bladder functions. It follows pretty segmentally. So the first cranial nuclei, this would be the highest. This is the closest to the brainstem, right? So these nerves, so 3, 7, 9. This is controlling basically the head and neck, and they're going to play a role in eye movement, accommodation, secretion of tears and saliva. And then as you go down, it has a larger role in digestion, see in the thoracic kind of region. And then finally in the sacral region, there is going to be more control over the pelvic viscera. So within the nuclei, the ganglions are going to produce all these sensory and motor neurons, and they are going to be either sensory in regard to pressure, temperature, pain, or motor. So the motor neurons are going to have the largest diameter. They are the fastest because they are highly myelinated. That's why the diameter is large. On the other hand, pain is going to be the smallest diameter, so they're not generally myelinated, so the conduction velocity is pretty slow. Okay, the somatic motor neuron is going to be only a single myelinated axon from the central nervous system to the motor unit. It's a one-way kind of shot. The sympathetic preganglionic fiber is a cell body that lies in the spinal cord, and it's myelinated to extend to the autonomic ganglia in or near the vertebra. So this is going to release acetylcholine. The sympathetic postganglionic fiber is going to be the cell body at the autonomic ganglia. So this is going to lie either in or near the vertebra. And this is an unmyelinated type C fiber, and it extends directly to the visceral effector. So this releases either norepinephrine or acetylcholine. The parasympathetic preganglionic are going to be myelinated fibers, and those extend to the autonomic ganglia close to or in the visceral organ, and this is also going to release acetylcholine. The postganglionic are also similar to the sympathetic ganglionic fibers. They're unmyelinated, and these release acetylcholine. So unlike the sympathetic ganglia, there's no choice between acetylcholine and norepinephrine. The parasympathetics, everything releases acetylcholine. So in general, the parasympathetic has a long preganglionic neuron and then a short postganglionic neuron. While in the sympathetics, it's either even, especially if it releases norepinephrine, or it's very short. Okay, so the most important cholinergic receptors are going to be either the nicotinic or the muscarinic receptors. The nicotinic receptors respond to both epinephrine and norepinephrine, and they are a ligand-gated ion channel, and they play a role in contraction. So for the examples are the chromaffin cells or the motor end plate. The muscarinic receptors, there's 3 different types, depending on what type is going to be specific to a certain medication, right? So because of that, we like to target the muscarinic receptors very specifically. We want to be careful because they can either excite or inhibit. For example, there's the sweat glands and the blood vessels. Okay, so the adrenergic receptors, A1, are going to lie in the organs and the blood vessels, and they play a role in the constriction of these tissues. The alpha 2 adrenergic receptors are going to lie in the adrenergic axon terminal or the pancreas. So these are going to inhibit norepinephrine released from the adrenergic terminal, so they are going to inhibit secretions. Beta 1, you should know, in the heart, kidneys, and adipose tissue. More importantly, is in the heart because we target these in beta blockers. So they increase heart rate, contractility, stimulate renin secretion, and all in all, increase blood pressure. Beta 2 adrenergic receptors are going to lie in the lungs and blood vessels. So they're going to dilate these tissues. The beta 3, we don't really test too much about because really their only role is the stimulation of lipolysis. Okay, so the ANS system is going to be both antagonistic and cooperative. So the antagonistic effects occur because each division innervates a different tissue. So, for example, the cooperative effects are going to be saliva secretion and the external genitalia whenever they're stimulated, right? While the parasympathetic fibers play a role in vasodilation and erection. The sympathetic fibers are going to play a role in ejaculation or the reflex peristalsis. So parasympathetic is for arousal, sympathetic is for orgasm. So the exception are the effectors that are only sympathetic. So these usually have dual innervation. So when you are aroused, the parasympathetic system is going strong, right? And then in men, the sympathetic system turns on, inhibits the parasympathetic in order for orgasm to occur. So the exceptions are going to be your erector pili, the sweat glands, and the blood vessels because these only are sympathetic. Okay, so the hypothalamus controls basically homeostasis. So heart activity, body temperature, some emotions, mostly rage and pleasure, the biological drive, so hunger, thirst, and sexual activity. And it really plays a huge role in reacting to fear and anger because it's in the limbic system. Okay, so the orthostatic hypotension is diabetes mellitus is going to decrease the frequency of the action potential in the sympathetic nerves that innervate the blood vessels. So that is going to there's going to be a problem in vasoconstriction. There's going to be too much dilation occurring, so blood pressure goes down. And it occurs in diabetes mellitus because there is damage to the nerve cells, of course. Raynaud's disease, it's going to be caused either because of medication, disease, or it's an autoimmune disease as well. So that can be an exaggerated sensitivity of the blood vessels to the sympathetic innervation. Achalasia is an abnormal parasympathetic regulation of the swallowing reflex. Usually it's due to a stroke. Horner syndrome is going to be a problem with the sympathetic nerve supplies to only one side of the face. And Hirschsprung disease, which can be either like a congenital defect in the myotonic plexus. There is a place where it's like aganglionic, or there can be damage to the ganglions there, causing like ischemia. But in general, this part of the colon, it can be any part of the colon really, but in this picture, it's going to be the descending kind of area of the colon, and that is going to be very distended because there is no contraction due to the lack of innervation. Okay, so that's it for now. Thank you for your attention, and see you in the next part.